What's up, spectators? Thanks for joining the podcast today. I'm Joe, and today we're going to look back on the Sharks season. Even though they're the worst team in the league, somehow can we derive some positives out of the season? And we'll look ahead at the basketball. Yes, the basketball, the WNBA draft, as well as the Warriors making the playoffs. Music! Thanks for tuning in today to Silicon Sports Spectator, where we're going to talk everything related to the fan experience for all of our favorite professional sports teams here in the Bay Area. Let's kick it off with basketball. We had the Valkyries make their first draft for the WNBA. The Valkyries had 3 picks. With their first pick, they selected Juste Josite. Practiced that a few times. She's a Lithuanian guard. Young teenager. I think she's 19 years old. She's been playing professionally overseas since she was 14. Most recently played on the Lithuanian national team. During the broadcast, I caught everyone off guard because no one had notes on her or anything like that. They had to quickly find some clips, but it was kind of this muted reaction from the commentators. Nevertheless, it looks like it has some upside with drafting 5th. I don't think you're drafting a face of the franchise or anything like that. In fact, the Valkyries GM had even said openly that, look, we're not looking for a star at this position necessarily. They're, of course, building an identity here in their inaugural season. So congrats to Juste. So the other picks, too, in rounds 2 and 3 were interesting. Shanae Sellers was expected to go in the first round, but slipped all the way to the 5th pick in the second round. She's a forward at a University of Maryland, 6'2". I thought this was a pretty cool pickup. I bet we were surprised that she was available, and we'll see if she can crack the roster. In our 3rd pick, Caitlin Chen from the championship UConn team joined up. She, of course, had a great career at Princeton, used her years of eligibility there, and then as a graduate student went to UConn. Princeton would not allow her to play as a graduate student. So Caitlin Chen from a UConn championship to now the Valkyries. What's nice about that is I don't think that typically in the WNBA that a lot of the 3rd round picks, they just have the 3 rounds, tend to crack the roster a lot of times. For a debut franchise, I think she has a good chance here of making the team. A little bit that I saw of her, she was a great piece on that UConn team. In that UConn championship game against South Carolina, it was a big blowout. Caitlin got a lot of playing time, and Paige Beckers even gave her a special shout out by name, saying both during the draft, before the draft, about how that Caitlin was going to be a great fit for a WNBA franchise. So we'll see how that goes. I like it just that we're beginning to form a team, and we'll see what they are. I have tickets for the preseason games, so I'll get to see them early. I see a lot of our prospects and see how the team gets together. I'm excited to check that out. The Valkyries coming to town, and opening week is just a few weeks away. That preseason game is the first week of May, and then the season kicks off shortly after that. Hey, a quick note before we dive into the Warriors. I just want to give a quick shout out to the Stockton Kings. The Stockton Kings of the G League, winning the G League championship. I called my buddy Brad, Stockton resident, and asked him, does Stockton qualify as a Bay Area team? He said Bay Area adjacent, which I tend to agree with, and so forth. I've heard people, of course, argue in favor of, we touched the corner of the Bay. And well, since the Stockton Kings are affiliated with the Sacramento Kings, we won't dive too much into them other than giving them a congratulations. Sounds like the Sacramento Kings could use a little help. They failed to make the playoffs yesterday with a loss to the Dallas Mavericks. And cool honorable mention about that with a little Bay Area tie-in. Just didn't Klay Thompson look incredible in that game for Dallas? We can't say that we're surprised. Congratulations to Klay as he makes the playoffs with the Dallas Mavericks. And needless to say, a tumultuous year for them. All right, let's talk Warriors. And my goodness, what a week where, I don't know, I turned to the drink. The Warriors were so frustrating this past week. We started with a win at Portland. That was one we absolutely had to have and should have had. Got that. Check. But then I had the last game of the regular season playing the LA Clippers, a team that we were fighting for positioning in the playoffs. If we win, we got the 6th seed. If we lost, we slipped into the play-in game. Well, the Warriors did not do so hot in a must-win game. They lost to the LA Clippers in overtime. It was a good game. Frustrating, though, because it was definitely one that was winnable. Really shot ourselves in the foot multiple times during that match. Needless to say, that put us into the play-in game where we got paired with Memphis. And this was just the game the other day. Memphis fought hard. We were up 20 points early. Jimmy Butler looked incredible, especially in the first half. I think he ended up with 37 points, if I recall. And but yeah, he and Steph were not surprised ever. And really, we shouldn't be surprised now. Jimmy Butler stepping it up for the playoffs. Playoff Jimmy showed up. We end up getting this win over Memphis in the play-in game, and now we are paired against Houston. Now, Houston, we actually have played pretty well, but our most recent memory of Houston was them beating us. I don't remember how close that was, but I don't think it was a very close game. So I'm going to be curious to see how this plays out. All in all, I do like the matchup. What's going to be curious, though, I think the biggest talking point for me is, what is Jonathan Kuminga's role going to be in the playoffs? Did not get any playing time in the last couple games. Did not play against the Clippers. Did not play against Memphis. But he's done really well for us in his performances against Houston. In fact, he was our top scorer in one of those games and had his best game of the season against the Houston Rockets. Houston, of course, being a very strong defensive team, well-rounded. I don't know, I think we're going to need him a year. What's true of any Warriors game? Who's going to be your third scorer? You need it. Steph is going to be a constant, of course. But is it going to be Pajensky? Is it going to be Kuminga? Is it going to be Quentin Post even? To someone to surprise you. We've done well with scoring off the bench. This can't just all be the Steph and Jimmy Butler show. So let's see what happens. Steph's a little banged up. In fact, all the Warriors. Jimmy, a little hip contusion, looked great though. Steph still has this thumb injury that on his shooting hand that, I don't know, you wouldn't think it because the guy had 38 points and looked great again, but I still think it's bothering him, especially, he bumped someone and Steph's always getting bumped in the lane or whatever. And you can see him grimacing in pain sometimes. I think this is a bigger injury than Winwick, but he's just that talented. No excuses. And the guy performs. But all right, so the playoffs for the Warriors kick off on Sunday in Houston. So good luck to the Dubs. We're going to turn even more gray, I have the feeling, but I like our chances in a 7-game series against them. It'll be tough, and let's see where it goes. Let's talk Sharks. Game 82 wrapped up, finishing the season for the Sharks. They clinched the worst record in the NHL for the second straight season. They're going to be a guaranteed lottery pick. This was never the goal of the season, much beyond this. They improved from last year. I think this year was a year of much greater optimism. I watched the season with a lot more excitement. Last year was dreadful. There wasn't a lot to root for. And this season, we have our star rookies and our good pipeline of prospects. That's really where the light was shining on them the most, giving us hope. We saw flashes of greatness from folks like Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and a lot of our other young players. But the real star of this season, I think, is Mike Greer, our GM, who did his job. Is that we're not going to be this competitive team. He's got rid of bad contracts. He's put together a great prospect pipeline, acquired a lot of draft capital for us, and got rid of some bad contracts. Where do we go from here? Next year, we're going to look for incremental improvements, and also, but probably more important even than that, I think we're trusting in the process for our young talent and everything. A lot of them are teenagers, whatever, or just in their early 20s. That's fine. They're going to continue to grow. I trust in that. They have the raw talent. They've shown us that already, and it's only going to get better. That's great. What's probably most important in both the offseason and the season ahead is what new strategies is Mike Greer going to take? I don't think we can do another tank and sell all the contracts, and we don't have much left in the cabinets. Now it's a time to start putting the pieces together to build chemistry around our foundation, our young player foundation. So we got a lot of cap space. What types of pieces can we go after this offseason or even the next one? Are there additional contracts that we can bring on? Are there any trades? Can we trade some of this extra draft capital. I think we have 2 first-round picks in the next 3 seasons and a lot of second, third round, fourth round picks also in the pipeline. We got a lot to trade with. Again, probably more than we need to actually draft. What are we going to do with the draft capital? How we draft our second first-round pick last year. We took Sam Dickinson, who really impressed in the OHL. Does he make it into the Barracuda next year? He probably should. We'll probably see him in the prospect games and maybe some preseason games. I don't know if he'll crack the roster, at least not immediately, but hopefully his development continues. He'll make the roster at some point, probably not to start the season though, but the future is very exciting there. Looking back, on the Sharks here, just to wrap up this season, we're on a 7-game losing streak to end this season. It's been a while since we have a win. This past week we had losses at Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and then ended the season with a second loss, a shutout loss no less, to the Edmonton Oilers in the final game of the season. Brutal. I was listening to the TV broadcast, and there wasn't much to talk about during the game, of course. What can you say? But what I picked up from the broadcast and really how I feel too is that don't worry about the results this year. It's the optimism that we have for this coming seasons ahead. You can see the future being built right now. Macklin Celebrini gets chosen just among Bay Area press members as the team MVP. No surprise there. Macklin as this star 18-year-old player had a phenomenal season, giving us hope for this franchise that, we've been astray for so long, and now we have this big glimmer of hope, and he's rightly the person that we're going to build around. So very exciting times for our franchise. It's also bittersweet too, because this past week, we got the official announcement that our captain, Logan Couture, is retiring from the game of hockey. This is disappointing, of course, maybe expected. Logan has been out with this really awful injury, really for 2 full seasons. He did make an appearance last year for 6 games, but just found that he could not play. That this nagging groin injury continues to nag at him. I looked up some of the symptoms and everything about this particular issue that he has, and it's painful. It affects how you walk and move, and really only aggravated by additional exercise. Hopefully he'll remain somehow involved in the franchise. I expect that he will. We never got to see him a lot, but Logan was at every practice, still acted as captain, had close relationships with the players on the roster, and very much was involved in those operations, even though you did see him much on TV. So Logan, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being a wonderful member of the Sharks. 16 years as the San Jose Shark, first-round draft pick for us. Yeah, a lot of great memories. He talked about both the 2016 run to the Stanley Cup final and the 2019 big series against the Vegas Knights, the comeback there, his involvement in that, him looking back at those favorite moments. Logan could be counted on to be a high percentage shoot-first scorer and was wonderfully accurate. Honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of him as captain, just because I didn't see a lot of emotion from him in his interviews and everything like that. But I think I was proven wrong in that when you hear what the other players said about him, how he had great leadership in the locker room, on the ice, and maybe no more emblematic than during that Vegas comeback. He was the one that kicked off that comeback. The famous him mouthing, that's one. We get that first goal on the, being down 0-3, and we get 4 goals in a row on a single power play to lead that incredible Game 7 comeback against the Vegas Golden Knights. He kicked it off. He had 2 of the goals in that comeback. Interesting was, in that 2019 season, too, we made it to the Western Conference Finals. We did not make it to the finals, of course, that year. We lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. Still mad about that. They were such a team of destiny, that year it was impossible to kind of beat them. But anyways, Logan had led the Stanley Cup playoffs, all players, all teams in goal scoring that year, and we didn't even make it to the finals. So that kind of just shows the level of performance that he had, as always, in the playoff season. He led all scorers in points during the 2016 Stanley Cup run. He earned very much that Captain Clutch or Couture nickname. So Logan, thanks again for all the memories. You will be missed. We hope to see you around the franchise. Someone buy that man a drink at Stanley's. Some other quick Shark notes here. Tyler Toffoli, Uncle Tyler, as we like to call him, the old man on the roster. Congratulations on a 30-goal season, his third 30-goal season in a row for 3 different franchises, no less. So happy to have you on the Sharks. I think he actually earns the captaincy. He's kind of my nomination for that. The knock against doing that is, A, he's not going to be around too much longer, playing, I think, maybe just another season or two. And then 2, the second knock being is, hey, do you want to give the C to Macklin right off the bat? Macklin's still only 18 years old. Can you give that to a captain that young? Yes, he's the talent piece that you're going to build around. I don't know enough about Macklin in the locker room and his presence there. Toffoli, I know, you can tell, is that leader on the ice in the locker room. And it's just a matter of, hey, you just want to kind of give this as a short term, or even in years past too. The Sharks have done no captain and multiple assistant captains. Not a big fan of that method, but do we see that? Make someone earn it. Well, Tyler, you did a great job. I used to love rooting against you when you were with the Kings. I'm glad you made it to the Sharks, so great piece for it. Stick around another season or two. Let's keep that high goal scoring streak going for us. I will say about Tyler Toffoli, though, too, looking at his career stats, these 30-goal seasons towards the end of his career, these are probably his best performance seasons. Now, he plays a little bit different role. When he was on the Kings, and he was a third liner, and it was great depth to have at that position. But he was only scoring 20 goals or around there. And it wasn't until several years later that he had over 30. It's great to see his game evolve, especially now that he's on our team and not on our division rivals. But Uncle Tyler, you're doing great. Just to wrap up on the Sharks, is in a retrospective here, what grade do we give the Sharks this season? They got the worst record in the league, did not make a lot of strides in terms of the standings and such, but I'm going to give a relatively high grade. I'm going to say like a B minus. If we're doing letter grades here. And I'm tempted to go even higher than that, because the objective of this season wasn't to make the playoffs or anything like that. A large part of this grade comes from the A-level performance of the front office, building the right talent pool, getting draft capital, and developing our young talent. The pieces are getting in place. There's a reason to be optimistic and hopeful for coming years. Performance-wise, I think it's hard to say because there really were a lot of painful games to watch. How many of our games, though, this year were 1-goal losses, though? And I didn't do the math on this or anything, but, last year we just kept getting blown out by 4 and 5 goals, and we tend to go down very early in matches. This year with the Sharks, I feel like they were always in it. Now, it's frustrating because so many times where we had third period leads or ties, and we'd give up some dumb penalty or give up some weak goals. I know all the pieces aren't there yet. We traded away our top goaltender this year. Didn't play our star prospective goalie very much either because he was down with the Barracuda most of the season. The emphasis really was development of young talent. So yes, we of course celebrate Macklin Celebrini, who from his first shift literally had impact and was just incredible to watch every single night. He's worth the price of admission always. But look too at Will Smith, who probably shouldn't have cracked that roster on that first day, but we kind of forced him in. He took his licks, and it took him a while to get going in terms of getting on the stat sheet. But once he kind of broke through, you could see tangible improvements in his game every single game. And I tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if he and Macklin are fighting for who's going to get the scoring lead on the team next year. Especially if they play together, because it's just going to be Thornton and Marlowe. It's that kind of pairing. Especially they had this great chemistry together, and they're really developing together at this really incredible pace. But beyond that too, look at some of the other teams. I love Shakir McMulladooman. Shakir, how many times have I practiced that last name and I still can't say it? Shakir Mack, let's call him that. McMulladooman. And there I said it. How he developed a lot. I think he's going to be a key defenseman for us in the years to come. Jack Thompson, I think, can earn a roster spot as another one. Oh, and let's talk about William Eklund too. In his second year, I was afraid that he had kind of, I don't want to say peaked, because it was hard. He played a full, season last year. And showed some promise. I was kind of worried that was as good as it was going to be. Was he just, going to be a 15, goal scorer for a long time? He was the best prospect in our pool, and I just thought, okay, this guy's good, but is he going to be great? This year, I felt like he really made huge strides. His play on the power play and killing penalties, I think he led the team in terms of forwards, in terms of plus minus. I'll have to double check that, but he is going to be an important part. He's evolved and continuing to develop. And I would even call him most improved player, William Eklund. He showed a lot of promise last year, and then this year took it up, another stride. Maybe even has a leadership position, assistant captain, something for this team. One of the talking points is going to be for the Sharks here during the offseason is, does Macklin win the Calder Trophy as top rookie? I don't think he does. Lane Houston in Montreal is kind of the one that I sign off on, who would get my vote. Now, it doesn't mean that Macklin might not have the better career overall, but just in terms of this first season, Lane took over the scoring lead. His Montreal Canadiens made it to the playoffs. I was watching carefully. I thought Dustin Wolf, the goaltender for the Calgary Flames and a Bay Area native. He's from Gilroy. How cool is that? Gilroy, developing hockey players. Who would have thought? But Dustin Wolf, his rookie season, I think if Calgary made the playoffs, he could have made his case for Rookie of the Year. Calgary, though, competitive to the end, ended up not making the playoffs. They're lucky they have this great goaltender in Dustin Wolf. Gilroy's own. Gotta love that. Dustin, congratulations. I have this feeling that's going to be aggravating playing against you in the next few years, but I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of Gilroy stories. One last note from the hockey realm, just the shout out to the San Jose Barracuda making the playoffs. They play against the Calgary Wranglers on the road beginning tomorrow, Friday the 18th. Luca Cagnoni, all rookie team in the AHL. Congratulations. This guy, every time I'm down on him, just like, oh, he's not going to make it to the end. I actually found myself missing him late in the season here after he played a couple games with the Sharks and got called up after he moved back down. I kind of missed his presence. I thought he was just a great presence on the ice, and excited to see where his future goes. This guy is so talented and hopefully helps us in our playoff run here with the Barracuda. All right, let's look around. What else is going around the Bay Area? It wasn't a lot of positive news. Earthquakes loss. AFC had a loss. Note of optimism, though. The Giants are still doing really, really well. I like what they're doing. They're second right now in that very competitive NL West. I got to give some mad love to my new favorite player who's just so cool to watch in the field, at the bats, running the bases, Young Hoo Lee. My guy. What is he batting right now? 38, I think? Yeah, it's incredible. This guy is great and so fun to watch. And I'm really excited to see him develop. He just has this big ball of energy that he brings to it. Wilmer Flores continues to rake like no other. I think he's up to 6 home runs so far right now. As many as Shohei Ohtani, so we'll see how long we can say that. For right now, it's fun just to see him perform. I like how the Giants are looking. Been tuning into a few games and watching them. So what else do we got? My attention is turning towards the Warriors in the playoffs. It's going to be my big emphasis here. Let's get out of the first round. In fact, let's start by getting a single win against these Houston Rockets. Hoping to check out one of the road games from Splash in Thrive City. So it'd be a great vantage point to watch the game with a lot of fans. Really appreciating the Chase Center leaning into the fans who show up in Thrive City to watch the game from the outside. They have doing a lot to make that space really accessible and enjoyable for families, especially for as crazy as ticket prices can be. Like, it's hard to bring a family to a game, let alone a playoff game, but you want to be with a very energetic crowd, great fans, sitting in Thrive City, whether it's on the steps or grabbing a spot on the turf there outside of Chase Center. All that, man, it's the great energy that you get, maybe even better than on the inside. And that says a lot because the energy inside is bouncing. A great community aspect, something that you couldn't do at Oracle. And if you haven't checked it out, check out a game there. And just from the outside, especially as the weather is getting nicer right now. That's going to become my go-to place to watch a big game, especially ones on the road or even there at home. Kind of channel that good energy from the inside of the building all the way outside. All right, we're going to cut here. It's been a fun chatting today, looking back on the Sharks, looking ahead at the Warriors in the playoffs. This is Silicon Sports Spectator. I'm Joe. We're done for today. Peace.